These prisons are reserved only for the most hardened, heartless, and cold criminals. Better hope you don't end up here. I'm your host Yusuf, and these are the top 10 strictest prisons in the world. Hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, time to get cuffed. Number 10. Alcatraz. There have never been any successful escapes from Alcatraz. 36 inmates put the inescapable title given to Alcatraz to the test. 23 of whom were recaptured, 6 of them were shot, and 5 went missing and were presumed drowned. The US Army began incarcerating military prisoners inside the new fortress in the late 1850s. During the Civil War, prisoners included Union deserters and Confederate sympathizers. The cells were also used to imprison Native Americans who had land disagreements with the federal government, American soldiers who deserted to the Filipino cause during the Spanish-American War, and Chinese civilians who resisted the army during the Boxer Rebellion. Number 9. Black Dolphin. Black Dolphin Prison is a correctional facility in Sol-Ilitsk, Orenburg Oblast, Russia, near its border with Kazakhstan. The prison houses approximately 700 of Russia's worst criminals. Prisoners at Black Dolphin are all serving sentences of life imprisonment. The prison began accepting these inmates on the 1st of November 2000. Inmates are kept isolated and housed in cells that have a set of 3 steel doors. For 90 minutes a day, they exercise in a large cage. During this time, cells are searched for contraband and illegal items. Inmates are also under 24-hour surveillance and supervision. They are not permitted to rest or sit on their bunks from the time they awake until bedtime. Number 8. Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay, or Gitmo, became the focus of worldwide controversy over alleged violations of the legal rights of detainees under the Geneva Conventions and accusations of torture or abusive treatment of detainees by US authorities. Most detainees were captured in Afghanistan or along the border with Pakistan in the early days of the US invasion. Many were reportedly caught by US allies and handed over in exchange for bounties that ran into the thousands of dollars. Some were held and interrogated by the CIA for months or years at undisclosed locations, commonly referred to as black sites, before their transfers to Guantanamo. Number 7. ADX Florence. ADX Florence is the most infamous supermax facility in the world. It holds the most notorious criminals in history, including El Chapo. El Chapo has escaped prison twice while being held by Mexican authorities in 2015 and 2001, but never while being held at ADX. Nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, no one has escaped the facility located in the high desert about 2 hours south of Denver since it opened in 1994. Inmates are housed in soundproof 7 by 12 foot cells for 23 hours of the day on permanent lockdown, with no contact with other inmates. Staff members are carefully vetted and have little direct contact with the inmates. Number 6. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison. Kenya is known for its harsh prison conditions, but Kamiti is by far the worst. It is notoriously overcrowded and the conditions are unsanitary. The prison's official capacity is 1,200, though reports suggest there are between 1,800 and 2,500 inmates crammed inside. Though Kamiti was already well known for housing political prisoners, infamy grew in 2008 when a riot sparked by a contraband search was captured on cell phone and shown on television. It also made headlines again in 2021 when 3 convicted terror suspects escaped. 7 wardens were later arrested for helping aid their escape. Number 5. San Quentin. The oldest prison in California, San Quentin is notoriously known for its violence. It has been home to many infamous criminals, including Charles Manson, Scott Peterson, and Sirhan Sirhan, who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy. In early 2022, the state started the process of closing the deceased row and relocating the inmates, 3 years after the California governor ended executions in the state. Over the years, and particularly in the 1960s and 70s, San Quentin earned a reputation for corruption and interracial riots that were encouraged by the guards. Number 4. Mendoza Prison in Argentina. With a population roughly 3 times its capacity, Mendoza Prison in Argentina is severely overcrowded. As many as 5 inmates are crowded into cells that measure only 43 square feet, and many inmates are forced to sleep on the floor without mattresses. Amnesty International reported on the conditions back in 2005, alerting that people imprisoned in Mendoza are in such a desperate situation that they have gone as far as to sew their mouths up in demand of better living conditions. Prisoners had inadequate medical care, and the prison lacked a proper sewage system, forcing inmates no other choice but to use plastic bags and bottles as their washrooms. Number 3. Camp 14 Kacheon, North Korea. Near the middle of North Korea is a 60 square mile prison facility known both as Camp 14 and Kacheon. According to reports by the US Department of State, Camp 14 was built in 1959 near the center of the country, about 40 miles north of Pyongyang. Camp 14 is considered a political prisoner camp and can hold up to 15,000 prisoners. That means they are serving life sentences for being enemies of the state. Inmates here are routinely starved and forced into labor in mining, textiles, and farming. Number 2. Gitarama Prison in Rwanda. The most crowded prison in the world, Gitarama is home to more than 7,000 prisoners in a facility that was built to only house 400. Most of the inmates are suspects of the Rwandan mass execution that took place in 1994. Given the extreme overcrowding, the men and women housed here are forced to stand barefoot on the filthy ground for all hours of the day, causing their feet to rot. Many eventually require amputations, but with only one full-time doctor dedicated to the prison, most prisoners are unable to receive the treatment they need, resulting in half a dozen passings each day. Number 1. White Swan Prison in Russia. The Soviet authorities began to staff White Swan with some of the highest quality correctional officers in the country to control the thieves in law, in order to be able to withstand the bribes and intimidation. In 1999, White Swan was repurposed to house serious criminals serving life sentences, and unlike previous detainees, were not expected to ever leave the facility. The prison has roughly 300 inmates, 1/3 of its maximum capacity, held in cells of 1, 2, and 3 people. All cells have a dossier containing photos, articles, and a brief biography of the detainees. Thanks for watching, leave a like on the video if you found it interesting, and we'll see you next time.